This episode of The Answer is Yes Baja Sessions is brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico? You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have great travel information to help you plan your trip south of the border. Visit bajabound.com, the easiest way to get Mexican auto insurance.
Hello and welcome to the Answer Yes podcast. This is the Baja Sessions show, and I appreciate you tuning in. I have had the opportunity to get to know my good friend now, Sal Fish, over the last several years, and it's just such an honor and pleasure to have Sal on the air today. Sal, how are you doing up there, buddy?
Well, Jim, I'm really pleased that you thought of me, and I'm doing great. And I'd like to say hello to all your listeners and how excited I am to be a part of the show.
Well, I got to tell you, we've done about 8 shows, and before every show, I wish that I'd interviewed you, but I've been hesitant because I know you're busy, and you're kind of like the big Baja guy, and I thought, I got to call him one day and get him on the show. So thank you for making the time.
Well, no problem. And you know how much I love Baja. You know, I've spent, I would say, a better part of my life down in the Baja Peninsula and with the great people of Baja California and Baja Sur. And I really feel, being a native of Los Angeles and California, obviously, how blessed and lucky we are that, you know, depending on where we are, let's say in California, we only got a couple of hours drive to get to the border and cross into an incredible adventure, and to be able to have the opportunity to watch it grow the way it has and turn in to a, you know, some metropolitan great cities and great tourism, fun places to meet great people. The territory itself, you know, when you look at what it has, the Sea of Cortez, the Pacific, mountains, pine forests, dry lake beds, volcanic places. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's just, you know, and a lot of people get in planes and fly all over the world, and we've got a piece of land connected to California and, you know, Arizona and Texas. It is absolutely spectacular.
So what year did you first discover Baja and or Mexico? Because I know you've been going down for the better part of your life.
Well, I know you've got a time limit on this show, so I'm going to, and you know I'm not very brief, but I'm going to do the best I can. Actually, I was in grammar school, believe it or not, 1954, and I went to Transfiguration, a Catholic grammar school in Los Angeles. My dad had an automotive repair shop in Los Angeles, and you know he was a worker bee. I had 3 brothers, and so he wanted all of us to get an education and not be mechanics, and he actually bought a brand new 1954 Mercury. I could see it as we're talking. It was that beautiful black top with a big, deep maroon red color and black tuck and roll leather, which I think probably a lot of your listeners do not know that terminology of seats, but these leather seats. And my mom was just begging him to go for a little road trip, and there was an advertisement in the LA Times that was talking about this new development in this wild and beautiful seaport fishing village called Ensenada, and it was on this hill overlooking the Pacific, and they were just subdividing the land, and it was going to be, you know, you could buy a home and a lot overlooking the ocean, you know, for like maybe $20,000, and that was kind of besides having a new vehicle that they wanted to break in, and me bugging them at that age because I was like about, I don't know how old I was in 54. Don't make me go there, but no, I think I had my learner's permit, and I was, you know, driving them nuts, wanting to every time I could go someplace and drive and let them sit in the passenger seat because, you know, I think it was 14 and a half or 15 in those days. You got a learner's friend. So we headed off on a Friday and drove in 1954 from Los Angeles to the border, which, you know, Tijuana was really what the old time, what people think about Tijuana in 1954. It was, you know, I think I actually saw guys walking around with holsters and cowboys with guns on, and Revolution Boulevard was just this wide open, crazy place. And a guy at, like around 15 years old, my eyes were, the size of saucers looking at what was happening.
I bet.
And, driving through Los Angeles and Orange County, it wasn't the way it is today. The freeway wasn't even in. They were all orange trees, lemon trees, and cattle fields all the way to the border. San Diego was a beautiful little, community, and we crossed the border, drove to Ensenada, and it was the old road. There was no toll road there. And that was we didn't buy a lot, obviously, because it wasn't what they said. The roads weren't in. It was typical great Baja salesmanship. And that was really my first experience, and I just loved it. I just had, there was something that caught my attention at that early age, and then I went back when I got out of college. Actually, the second time, my brother took me down to Tijuana to a bullfight. We got on a bus at a bar here in Culver City that was a Mexican bar, and on Friday nights they had flamenco music. I can't even remember the name of the bar. It was great. And then on Saturday night, and then Sunday morning they take a bus to Tijuana and just get totally ripped on the way down there and watch a bullfights and, get poured into the bus and come home. And so that was my second time. And I said, I think I like this, after going away to college in San Francisco and kind of being a little more refined than, I thought I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I thought Ensenada and Baja was it. And then after that, I got a chance to race in the Nora race in I think it was 69, in a Baja Bug. And I really got hooked. And I was a lucky guy because I met some unbelievable, nice, young, like fourth generation of the families down in Ensenada that owned the hotels and stuff. And somehow we hit it off, and to me, it was a magical, unique experience that I could have done it and just walked on and continued my life, and it wouldn't have affected me one bit. To think that from 54 to basically 73. That whole part of my life kind of went by, and then all of a sudden, here I am working with Mickey Thompson and forming Score International. And for the next basically 45 years, I had the pleasure of traveling through the mainland of Mexico and all of Baja and Baja Sur and meeting 3 different presidents, probably 35 governors, Department of Tourism, you name it, hotel owners, restaurant owners, and people like yourself, Jim, that have loved Baja, and now you're doing a great business down there. And, it's a great place. The thing I feel, if anything I regret, is the unfortunate situation how our press in California especially, every chance they get, they try to rag on or make something happen down there. Yeah. And yes, there's been problems, they had the swine flu, they had a terrible financial situation, and unfortunately the drug situation that has affected the world, really came into play. And next thing you know, the target is Mexico per se, and then Baja. But I have never in my almost over 50, 60 years going down there had a problem. And I've always said, and I think you've heard me say this, Jim, if you're a nice person from the country you come to, and you're a nice person when you go visit a foreign country, you usually never have a problem. It's the people that are, to put it bluntly, dickweeds from where they come from.
True.
And they turn into really dickweeds when they go someplace else, and then they complain why they have a problem.
Yeah, and it's usually fueled by alcohol or something else, and they create their own problems. Hey, I want to ask you, you talk about what a special place it was as a child, and then in your college years and your early experiences there. Do you find that Baja is still as special today? Because I know you're down there frequently. Does it have the same attraction it did then?
Well, it does, and the reason I say that is, I've had the real privilege because of Score International to travel, and my business with Peterson Publishing, his Hot Rod magazine publisher, travel basically around the world and meet fine people and eat and see places. Well, all of that is right in Baja, and being of Italian descent, that Latin blood excites me, and the people are just so friendly when you get to know them, and when you don't even get to know them, I mean, they help out. They're still, I used to say Baja, and when I say Baja, I'm going to say to your listeners that possibly might not understand, there's two states, and one's called Baja, which goes from Tijuana to Guerrero Negro, and then from Guerrero Negro to which most people know about, Cabo San Lucas, and that territory is called Baja Sur, Baja South. You talk about it, and I used to say, they're like what California was 50 years ago. Yeah. Well, in the last, I'd say 10 years, I'm going to say it's like California was maybe 20 years ago, because the development now and the excitement and what people have found, business people and vacation people and tourist people have seen down there, the bang for your buck down there, and what you could do. I mean, I could take you to places in Tijuana, which you talk to some places, to some people, and I'll say, "My God, you mean you go to Tijuana? How can you do that? It's just a crazy place." And I said, "Yeah, I'll take you to a restaurant or 10 different restaurants that are better than any restaurant I've ever eaten in the world, for a quarter of the price, better service, fresher food, more ambiance, and you could sit there, all night, and a waiter who is a waiter, he's not struggling to be an actor or some artist, he's just doing this as a part-time, will wait until you ask for the bill, and then you'll get the bill, and then they close the restaurant, Well, I don't know any place where I've traveled, except in Europe, that could happen. And the scenic value is, I love traveling, and I love going to foreign countries, but at my twilight years here now, I do have the privilege of having a home in La Paz, which I love to get down as often as I can. And, everything is there that I want to do, As I said, the culture is beautiful. You could go from, sitting by a mesquite wood fireplace out in the middle of nowhere with a ranch hand and sharing a cup of coffee that the grounds are filtered through a old sock, and you've got a cup of coffee and eating food that he had just either killed or had stored somehow in a jerky fashion, or you could eat in what I consider a 5-star incredible restaurant on the Sea of Cortez, that has a super chef that, has gone with the deceased, unfortunately, Anthony Bourdain, and toured with him. And, there's just things happening down there that are so exciting. I guess my only regret is, that I'm the age I am now, that I'm not 20, 30 years younger, and and I'm having that much more time to enjoy the Baja. And I know I sound like I'm going to try to sell you a condo, but that's not true. If it's just a beautiful place. I recommend to your listeners that if they haven't experienced, the Baja, it's worth the try. The only thing I do say is, you've got to be a responsible American. You don't go down there and say you're in a foreign country, because a lot of people forget, even though it's, let's say from Los Angeles, 160 miles, 25 miles south, and all of a sudden you're in really a foreign country, they forget that they are in a foreign country, and their laws are different. And they're not that they're bad, the laws, they just do things different than we do. So you've got to assimilate yourself into their way of doing things, and you will have the time of your life, really. And for other people, after talking to them, and they'll say things to me, I said, you know what, you need to just buy your ticket, go to Hawaii, get in one of their great places, eat the food that, we eat every place else, meet the same kind of people, talk the same language. You don't have to worry about doing anything different, and come home. You'll have a great time. You do not belong in a foreign country that has a little adventure to it. And, that's my advice. It's just a lovely place, lovely people. I'm excited about what you're doing in the wine situation, Jim. I just, I knew the Guadalupe Valley 50 years ago, and there was a couple of Italians, a Russian, a German, and L.A. Shetto, who really is